So what the heck is happening with the Blade Soul Frontier server? I haven't paid much close attention to it because I was kind of disgusted on how different it is from the current Blade Soul we have now. If you guys aren't familiar, it is a tree exclusive server that does run on Unreal Engine 4, but it plays very different than current Blade Soul we have now. A lot of weird features like auto combat. A lot of the combat is very different from the version that we have. And so I want to talk about some of the new content they've been adding to the Frontier server, because they didn't just add the server in February and do nothing with it. They've been adding steadily a lot of new content to the server. And I want to discuss it because I've been looking more into detail about it. I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So let's talk about it. So one of the things that's been going on with the Frontier server is that they've been adding a lot of open world content. Now, this is something I definitely wanted to see because with the new engine on Unreal Engine 4, I kind of hoped they would add more open world content and less six-man dungeons, stuff that you have to go into instance and you don't interact with a bunch of players. If they're adding a new engine to Unreal Engine 4, I think having a bunch of open world bosses where you interact with hundreds plus players is a really good benefit. Over the past couple months, there's been a lot of new content coming to the Frontier server and a lot of open world bosses, aka field bosses with big, large areas where a bunch of players fight it together, as you'll see here. I will say the engine doesn't really run perfect. There still is some FPS drops, but I will say it does run better than the current one we have now, which is not saying much because it runs terribly, so it's not really a good thing to base it off, but it does run better than the Unreal Engine 3 we have right now. With this server, they've been adding a lot of these field bosses, as I said. They're also just added the Blade Dancer class, because if you guys aren't familiar, the content really only went up to level 45. And so they didn't have classes like the Blade Dancer. I believe they added the Warlock, I'm not entirely sure, but they did recently just add the Blade Dancer to the Frontier server. Now, like everything on the Frontier server, the Blade Dancer plays totally different from the live version Blade Dancer we have. You'll see the combat is very different. It's a lot more slow paced compared to the Blade Dancer we have on our version. But they do have different abilities, and they just added this Blade Dancer, so it is brand new technically to the Frontier server. So over the past couple of months, they've been introducing the field bosses, new classes, which really aren't new classes, but new to the server. And then they also been doing some six-man dungeons. So overall, what is the future of this Frontier server? It's very kind of blurry to me because I'm not sure what NCSoft is trying to do with it. Again, there is a lot of mobile type features like the auto combat. It kind of plays like a mobile game because there's not really much rotations or anything. This is something you really could play on your phone. You just press a few buttons. Someone can argue that even the live version of Blade Soul we have now is starting to turn into that, because literally most classes only have like a 1 or 2 button rotation now, especially with simple mode. And here's some gameplay footage of one of the dungeons on the Frontier server, which if you're an old-timer player of Blade Soul, you remember this dungeon back from like 4 years ago. I remember farming like crazy because Good Games Grade, you know, the meme guy, the old YouTuber of Blade Soul, one of the first ones, he actually made a video about a drop from this boss, which was a recipe for crafting that was worth like hundreds of gold. So I remember farming this dungeon like crazy, but that's a whole nother story. But either way, this is some of the dungeon gameplay footage. The Frontier server doesn't go up to level 50 now, but it's still not up to the current level we have now, which is 60 on the live version. So basically, they're treating like the Frontier server like a WoW Classic, like it's like an old version of Blade Soul. But then they're also adding new content to it, which is kind of odd because they're adding these field bosses that don't exist in Blade and Soul on the live version clearly. But they also have some of the old dungeons from the live version of Blade and Soul. So they're trying to do like a mix of it. But yeah, a bunch of new content with this Frontier server. 5+ like field bosses. I counted open world content that they've added in the past couple months. It's actually insane how many they've added. Bunch of new open areas, dungeons. So NCSoft is clearly dedicating a lot of resource and time into adding content to this Frontier server. It's just kind of odd that it's a Korea exclusive thing, because I feel like if they're going to put so much time and energy into developing new content for the server, why they wouldn't just make it a global thing where everyone can just play it on all the servers. I think maybe in the future they will if it's more well received in Korea, but either way, that's really the content. They're adding a lot of new stuff here, some old stuff too, but you know, it's just kind of sucky because I feel like this is the only rendition of Unreal Engine 4 we're going to get for Blade Soul. I really don't think they're even going to add Unreal Engine 4 for the live version. Again, all we've had is this server since February in Korea only, and literally that's all the information we've got on Unreal Engine 4. So to me, it just kind of seems like they developed this Frontier server in Korea, and then it just says screw Unreal Engine 4, that's all we're going to do. But hopefully that's not the case. We'll see in 2021, right? Because I highly doubt any type of Unreal Engine 4 content is going to come within like less than 2 months. just don't see it happening, honestly. So anyways, appreciate you guys watching the video. That's what's been going on in the Frontier server. Definitely have been adding a lot of content from NCSoft, so it's not like they're ignoring it. They definitely want this server to do well in Korea, and if it does really well, they probably will transfer over to the West sometime in the future. But anyways, let me know how you guys feel about this. Do you guys want to play on the Frontier server? Are you a fan of it? Me, not really. All I wanted was the current Blinsoul I play now to be running better, but NCSoft doesn't want to do that, sadly. Anyways, leave a like on the video, sub to the channel if you have it. More content coming soon. I'm out.